All right, season 2, 2021, January 1st, Coast to Coast podcast. We are back. I don't think we ever did a wrap up of last season, but it doesn't matter. It's behind us now. It's me and Tori. We're here. We're going to be doing 2021. We're going to be doing it all.
Yep.
We haven't talked too much about the schedule, but I'm assuming we're going to try to go for the weekly thing. Maybe even a little bit more. I think we talked about moving the fantasy to another day. I don't know, but we're here. We're gonna do. I'll call it quick, but I don't think we've done a run through practice run, so we always tend to go off on tangents. Breakdown of the 4 divisions that were named for 2021. Season's kicking off in about 2 weeks. January 1st today, 13th, so we'll call it 2 weeks. And yeah, anything you want to lead with here?
Not really. I mean, it's going to be good because I think we're going to be chopping some of the segments down. So today we're going to be going over all 4 of the divisions. But I mean, if you're only interested in one, then you maybe just check that out. Or
yeah, that's the plan.
While you're
for
here,
sure.
You can check them all out.
Yeah, what I'm going to be doing and what we talked about earlier is we're going to be still doing our long form, where I'll pretty much have everything we said, the tangents, all the filler that make our podcast unique. But we're also going to cut down the important keys. So like each division I might chop up, post a separate video. If you're more interested in the 10-15 minute version of certain topics, you'll be able to find it that way for sure. But yeah, I don't know if there's anything you want to touch on before, or do you just want to jump into kind of the divisions? I think we talked about we're going to break down predictions, maybe some narratives and stuff for there, but I don't know if you want to give us up to speed on some of the NHL news.
I mean, there's a lot to cover, obviously, since we last kind of chatted. I think just kind of looking at my notes here and just coming to this conclusion, I think it might be best just to kind of jump right into one of the divisions and go from there. And like you said, I'm sure there's going to be some tangents, and there's a few things I do want to get to, but I almost don't want to get to them until we've talked about the divisions, because it kind of wraps itself in, and I want to keep some teasers and whatnot ready.
For sure. And for the most part, we're going to assume that someone watching these videos has some sort of following of hockey, right? So they're going to be a little more up to date than maybe your Joe Schmo in your fantasy leagues or whatnot. So, yeah, let's do it.
And then I have a few things I also want to kind of throw out there just for being on the record. I mean, I know I have a lot of interesting takes, and I'm sure everyone's here to get a piece of that pie, but there's a few things I do want to kind of discuss that are not really mainstream necessarily, that I think are some interesting topics to get at. So we'll keep that for the end. But which division you want to start with? Do you want to go with the North, or you want to keep that to the end?
I was thinking let's keep that to the end. We'll keep the North and the West to the end, because that's kind of what I would say our bread and butter is, being you're on the east side over there, I'm on the west side over here. I don't know. Let's
save that for the climax, right?
Yeah, climax it up. Yeah. So I don't know. To me, let's lead things off with the Central. To me, I think is my least interesting division, but also my prediction a little bit is going to be, I think, outside the norm of what most people are going to be saying for this division. How do you want to do this? You just want to
let's go just kind of, I like to tier things.
Yeah, okay.
So if we want to start maybe with the first team or group of teams in that first tier, and then we can kind of debate, do they belong in that tier? What do we think? And then move tier from tier.
Sounds good to me. For this division, I really only have a 2-team top tier. I think it's a 2-horse race for the lead of the division. So I expect these two teams to be like 1-2. I have Tampa Bay and Nashville as those 2 teams.
And you have them in the same tier at the top?
Yes.
Okay.
What about you?
Now I'd like to hear your take on Nashville. Why do you have Nashville that high?
I like Nashville's depth. I think they're quite a deep team. Made some decent signings. I expect Duchesne to have a much better year. I feel like last year was his worst year, possibly as a player, but it's hard to say.
That 1 year in Colorado was pretty bad, but yeah, I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah. So he's going to have a more impactful role on this team. He's not relied on to be the top center either. So I don't know. I think their defense is solid. I have a lot of faith in their goaltending. I think they have solid two goalies, and I expect them to really be transferring the reins over to Soros this year a little more than Rene. But at the same time, they can fall back on Rene as that veteran guy. I know you're going to be different here.
Yeah, but on the goalies, if you ranked Saros and Rene from 0 isn't real, but like to me, I put 5 as replacement level.
I put like Saros as a 7.
Okay.
Maybe potential for 8. Well, I've been watching him. Maybe this is going to be biased. Like I'm going to have bias here. I've been watching him very closely as a coming up goalie for the past 3 years. Like almost most of his starts, and it comes from sports betting a little bit. I've found the market generally undervalues him. Mm-hmm. So I don't know.
Now let me ask: Are you a Jonathan Bernier fan?
No.
As to me, I think Saros and Bernier are the same goalie. Stature, skill.
Maybe. I do also put some weight when I'm making these picks into Nashville's just. I don't know what to call it.
Their defense is good.
But no, I'm putting it more onto like their team overall makeup. It's kind of like that if in football, like the Patriots for all those years, they just had the front office, they had the coaching, they had the solid infrastructure of what it takes more than off the ice of a good team, and I think Nashville has that, so I'm giving them a knock up for that. Whether I could be completely out to lunch on it. This is of all the teams that we're going to talk about today, this is my one that's like a little bit out to lunch probably.
See, the reason why I'm kind of grilling you on Nashville is because these are all the struggles I had in my own brain. Mm-hmm. I like Nashville, but I didn't have them in the same tier as Tampa. I think Tampa just kind of... I don't think they are as good as they were. A lot of that is because Kucherov's hurt.
Yeah.
I don't know what you can expect with Stamkos right now. It's kind of just prove it that you can stay healthy. Like, when healthy, he's a beast, but, like, he just hasn't stayed healthy. So, like, if this is the year, fantastic for him. Maybe it won't be. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I'm scared of Tampa's goalies, but, like, yeah, they did. And, like, I'm scared of the depth of goalies for Tampa, but at the same time, there's going to be a bunch of goalies on waivers, and there's going to be goalies all over the place that are going to be attainable for a 4th round or a 5th round pick if you're desperate even, or a 6th or 7th if you just want to bring him in as a 3rd goalie somewhere. That's probably going to solve itself. I'm not too worried, and Vasilevsky's going to play a ton, but I'm just worried about him staying healthy, not blowing a groin, something like that. But I think they deserve to be in their own tier in that division.
I think my concern with Tampa is that they're one key injury away from potentially being in trouble. Whereas that's why I give Nashville that extra boost, is I feel like their depth can withstand it a little bit stronger. Potentially think Philip Forsberg could be in for a hell of a year.
I agree. He's a sleeper for me. That could be pretty beastly. I mean, not top 30, but probably just
10th overall
after
pick.
That, but probably taken in. Good luck.
Sorry.
Yeah. So, and then for me, the reason why I was kind of asking is that I have a clear next tier. I kind of struggled. I kind of mixed the 2 tiers of the next 2.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't, like, I had Tampa 1, and we both agree with that. But then I had Dallas, Florida, Columbus, and Nashville.
Where'd you have Carolina? You have Carolina at the very bottom?
Towards the bottom, yep.
Wow, this is where we flip flop. So like for me, the next tier, like the tiered below, is Carolina, and kind of on their own, but potentially Columbus, because I feel like they're very similar teams. Mm-hmm. And then it falls off. I don't believe Dallas's run matters now. I don't believe them to be a playoff team in this division. I put them in a strong 5th.
Yeah.
And then below that, Chicago, Detroit, and Florida, I lumped them all together. And I know that's different from you. Very different from you. For
I
Florida,
don't
which
like the respect you're not giving to Florida.
I know, and I
If
know.
Florida finishes that bad, they need to just move to Houston or something.
Okay, I could be very well sleeping on this team. I
Yeah,
just
you are.
don't. How did they address their problems from the years before?
So what I said, what I said to some people that I talked about when Florida signed Bobrovsky is prove to me that Bobrovsky's going to have a good year.
Yeah.
Prove to me, show me one other goalie that has gone to another team other than the elite, that have gone to another team and been great out of the gate. Often
Okay.
as a goalie, you need to kind of get a feel for the tendencies of your D. Sometimes goalies match up well with their D because a goalie's cheat. A goalie always has a cheat. A goalie always cheats and leaves one spot more open than anywhere else, whether it's by accident or whether it's by design to, like, maybe it's their glove hands open because they have a really good glove hand, but maybe a defense tendency is to slide one way at the last minute, which screens him. Maybe instead, a defense has a tendency to slide to block that extra open spot, right?
Okay.
So those small differences for me are what are very hard to get in the first year. And speaking as a defenseman, I always found it very difficult to be consistent and accurate at the same time with all of my plays because of when the goalie came out to play the puck, or like if you made a mistake and you're now kind of scrambling, where are you supposed to scramble? Are you supposed to scramble for the pass, blocking short? Like there's certain things where defensemen, you almost lead the other players into the goalie's strength by design too. So like, unless you're the Broders, the Balfours, the Cujos, the Waz, the elite goalies that are just going to be good no matter wherever, a lot of those third and fourth tier goalies need at least a year, at least 60 games to really feel comfortable and know the tendencies and just be. So I said about Bobrovsky, year 2 is when he's going to come back to his form. That's why I am very hot on Bobrovsky. Not as an elite goalie. He never really was an elite goalie. He was a pretty damn good goalie playing in front of elite defense, which made him elite. So, like, could he be a top 50 player? Maybe around top 50 if Florida is as good as I think they're going to be. If to me, I don't see how Bobrovsky isn't a top 100 player, is basically what I'm saying, like fantasy-wise. But I really like the fact that they have that. And on top of that, one of the defensemen that they added, Radko Gudas, will make his life way easier.
Is that the Gudas that was on Philadelphia and Washington?
Yep.
Okay, that is a bit. See, that's kind of where I was going, and it's going to be pretty obvious as we go along that I don't know a lot of changes. I'm missing a lot, and just simple example is that because, like, to me, I didn't think they addressed their defense at all, but clearly I was incorrect.
Well, I'll pull up the team quickly on Cap Friendly.
From Florida-wise, so do you have Florida like being top, like easily in the playoffs?
Yes.
In your perspective, so what's your fourth playoff team?
Yes. I can't decide. Sorry, I have something in my eye here, but I can't decide between Dallas, Florida, Columbus, and Nashville who's going to miss. I don't like how banged up and how old Dallas is.
That's my
so
concern.
Like, I don't know.
I don't
but at the same
necessarily
time,
believe
I
their
feel
goalies
like
either. In their goalies.
I know everybody hates on Bishop, but Bishop has this weird thing where every other year he has a good year and every other year he has a bad injured year, and this is his on year. So if you follow that trend, if you believe in any kind of that stuff, then he's set for a decent year.
But also,
and I feel like when he's on, he's a top 5 goalie. Easily.
But also to go with what you were saying earlier, might be on the fantasy podcast, was that goalies are going to be more susceptible this year. So if he kind of has that track record of on-off, even though it's his on year, it's that short season for goalies that you were talking about could come into play for them.
Yeah. But Dallas also has one of the top young goalies in Jake Ottinger, and they have Anton Khudobin. So even if Bishop can't go, Jake Ottinger is basically a younger Ben Bishop.
Okay.
Jake Ottinger, I think 6'7", 6'7.5", and like 210, 220 pounds. Like, he's a big boy, and he's pretty good with puck handling. He's not as good as like Bishop and Price and whatever, but like he's not a weakness when it comes to that. So like I think he's being groomed for the replacement with Khudobin. Basically, I guess I like their 3 goalies when they're all healthy.
Yeah.
I really like Dallas's defense. Their forwards are older and banged up and whatever, but I do like what they're doing.
Okay.
Sorry, it's really bothering me.
And I think.
But yeah, I just wanted to jump back to Florida really quickly. So they have Ekblad and Yandel, Anton Strawman and Mackenzie Weegar, Radko Gudas, and they've got Nudavara. He was on Columbus.
Okay.
He played a pretty big role for Columbus. I'm pretty sure they have a top or good young defenseman I'm forgetting about as well. But then up front, the addition I really liked that they did was Alexander Wenberg from Columbus.
Okay. Yeah, I know.
He's a big two-way centerman. So that would slide really nice behind Barkov, especially when he's a two-way centerman. That gives them a really good kind of setup as a Raptors type team from NBA. Like, I don't know who are like the big, almost kind of like the Islanders, I guess, like the big teams that are known for like the defense, structured teams.
Which has not been Florida's forte for a while.
Exactly. And then they also got Hornquist. And I mean, he's not the player he once was, but he's also, again, in the same mold, big, strong, two-way player, kind of like a Zach Hyman. So, like, he's not going to hurt you.
Yeah. Well, he might be.
So, I mean, your top 6, you've already got Huberdeau, Barkov, Hornquist, and Wenberg in there. They also just signed Duclair. And then they've got a top young prospect that's going to be one of the top young snipers coming up in Owen Tippett.
Okay.
So they've got some pretty good scoring. Their two-way is no question to me. They're going to be at least in the middle, if not higher than the middle, in terms of two-way / defensive teams, goal differential teams, and I think that that's always good. Then you add in Bobrovsky, you add in a better penalty kill because of the guys that they added. You add in the rebound to the fact that they thought Bobrovsky was just going to come in and just be a king right off the bat. People are sleeping on him.
They still running with Joe Quenneville too?
Yep. So you got to remember their coach is a good coach, and he's probably spent this whole time off trying to specifically design up. And like these players that they've added are not list toppers. They're, role fillers. So like I'm sure Quenneville said, I need one of these 3 guys. I need 2 of these 7 guys. I need a defenseman that can go on the penalty kill that has a bit of sandpaper. And then they've also got 2 younger goalies that are pretty solid. So like, I don't see them a weakness. I see them actually very much in the mold of a Nashville. Nashville has a bit better defense overall, a bit better, team scoring, I would say. Not as premier talent as the Barkovs and the Huberdeaus, but I don't like Nashville's goalies as much as I like Florida's goalies. So I see them just right there. So, I mean, I guess while I'm talking out loud, I would put Dallas below them. If they're healthy, I'd put them above them.
Yeah. No,
I have to kind of probably
health went a lot into it for me as well.
And then Columbus is in there. I have to believe
until they give us a reason not to, right? Yeah.
Yeah. They showed they had some stuff. They added some more pieces.
Their defensemen will be more healthy this year. Like they were looking like a little rough in the postseason.
They were missing Bjorkstrand. They missed Atkinson. They were missing all their finishers, really, right? So like, I have to give them respect. And to me, I looked at Columbus and Carolina. I kind of looked at them, and I would take Columbus over Carolina any day right now. So yeah, those are my 5 teams. I don't know which one's going to miss. Probably Dallas because of the injuries. But if Dallas gets Seguin and whoever back and Bishop back, they could be one of the better teams in the second half. But is it too late? I haven't looked at their schedule specifically. If Dallas happens to play all the good teams first and the bad teams at the back half, they could have a schedule that sets it up in favor in that, and they could win, 22 of the last 25 games and go from 7th in the division to, or sorry, not 7th, but 5th in the division to 1st or 2nd, right?
Yeah.
So that's the one thing that scares me about Dallas is going to be a better team in the second half and a late bloomer. So you better get a head start on them, Columbus and Florida and Nashville, if that's the way it's set up.
Yeah, and so you don't think Carolina is in the hunt? Is that
Do not
strictly
believe in their
coming?
goaltenders.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna circle
How many
back.
times have I said that?
A lot about their goaltenders.
Yeah.
Um,
There's a reason why those goaltenders were not retained by the teams that drafted them and developed them. Usually, if a team spends a lot of time and money into somebody and then moves on to somebody else, that's not a clear-cut better player. They're just opening up room for a new
couldn't you say that
new
about
toy,
Freddie
right?
Anderson in a way?
No, because Freddie Anderson's a good goalie. People are giving him flack that's unnecessary.
But they moved on from him. Didn't Philly have?
Because they had Gibson.
Yeah, Philly has Hart coming up.
He came from Anaheim. No, he came from Anaheim. Freddie Anderson.
I know. I'm talking about Mrazek coming from Philadelphia.
No, Mrazek came from Detroit.
Technically, yeah.
Was Mrazek in Philly?
Yeah, he got traded to Philly for that playoff run.
Oh. I don't remember that.
He was a trade deadline trade. They're just trying.
But that's what I mean with goalies. Is like, for me, I have a very high bar, and like, yeah, you could be good for a year, but like, you're still a flash in the pan. And like, even your Tim Thomases, there's a lot of Tim Thomases out there. Like, just fill in the blank.
Yeah, goalies
it's hard to keep track of those guys.
When it comes to interchangeability, for sure.
Like, you have to have, like, in my opinion, in the league, that bar for me, that like, I need to know who you are. There's probably about 7 goalies for me.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I can definitely agree.
So, I think we're in a bit of a cold period for goalies, but I think the Russians are taking over in net.
Sounds good. Maybe.
I do.
So, okay, we got the breakdown of that. Then who do you have in the finals of this division? And then.
Well, we didn't get to the bottom teams because you had Chicago over Detroit. Because I wanted to touch on that because I think Chicago's the shittiest team in the division.
I just
like by far.
I honestly was surprised with Detroit's team. I was actually impressed. It looked like they did a lot of like filling up
the right moves.
Yeah, not making mistakes with their moves. They filled out their roster like it's an NHL roster now. It's not an AHL roster.
Competitive. Yep.
Yeah, it's a competitive team. Who they have in net? I know it's a newbie.
Well, it's Bernier and Greisch.
Okay.
Thomas Greisch.
Yeah. I don't know. This is probably wrong for me, but I gave them the Patty Kane edge, and that's why.
Okay. So you think Kane will carry the team?
He can carry them past Detroit.
Last in the division.
Yeah.
See, there's something about Detroit this year. There's something to me about Yzerman being there. Just about
valuable.
The legitimacy. Like, I kind of felt like Detroit was just a wandering franchise for a bit there. They weren't really doing anything. They weren't really working on being worse so they can draft. They weren't really drafting well. They were drafting what seemed to be a lot of Europeans that either took longer to show up or decided that they just didn't want to really commit to the Red Wings because of where they were in. And it was kind of sad to see, to be honest. Like, everybody likes when Detroit is relevant, right?
They've always been relevant for the longest time.
Yeah. I don't think you should sleep on the guy that they took in the first round, Lucas Raymond.
Okay.
A lot of them compare him to Mitch Marner, like almost identically, and they think that he might be just a smidge lower than Mitch Marner in like the league overall standings. I don't know about you, but I'd put Marner probably around 25, 30 in the league, maybe somewhere top 30-ish.
Yeah.
So I mean, if I'm saying he's a top 40 player, top 50 player, that's saying a pretty decent amount, right? So.
Okay.
I think they added Bobby Ryan.
Yeah.
Which isn't a huge add, but I mean he's a good player. I think now he is mentally clear. I think there is zero
expectation
weight on him. The expectation, like his contract isn't weighing over him. He's expected to be nothing. So if he goes there and succeeds, that's great. And for his well-being, it's a 1-year contract. If he so chooses that he's having a good year and he would like to finish out that year strong and stay in Detroit, cool. If not, well, then maybe you can get traded to a competitor and, shine in the playoffs and turn it into a new 2 or 3 year contract.
So is it
$3 million per or something?
Out of the realm of possibility of Detroit getting into the playoffs? In your mind, it is out.
Yes.
No chance.
Yes.
Okay. You have me getting on the Detroit Red Wings hype train right now.
It's funny because there's a few things out there that if you watch on YouTube, sometimes I end up going down a rabbit hole where people like to sim NHL seasons in NHL.
Yeah.
And there's a few out there who actually simmed in this division. Once you change it around, that Detroit wins the division. I don't see how that's possible, but like I just say that because I think they're a smidge underrated.
Sometimes
they're not in the same
when you
weight
pull in
class,
all
but...
these different people from different areas, which they kind of have done, that other teams have given up on.
Castaways.
Under a new vision of Yzerman, people just rise up. Vegas is the primest example of that from the get-go.
Yep. So I was going to say the Leafs before they drafted Matthews, when they had P.A. Parenteau, and they had all these just like outcast guys that just wanted to come here and get a chance to show that they could still play in the league, right? So they played every night like it was their last, and
you have
nobody remembers half the team, but
you have me questioning my peers. I mean, I'm still the top two are still the same for me, but after that, you have me questioning everything I ever. And do I actually believe Detroit can make the playoffs now? It might be possible.
Really? Yeah. See, like if you look at their forwards, like. I'll go to their team quickly. I just remember I asked you about Saros and Bernier, if you believed in Bernier.
Mm-hmm.
So, like...
Not really, no.
I don't believe in Bernier, and I like Saros. He wears my favorite number and all, but, like, he's a smaller goalie who loses his posts from time to time, a.k.a. he swims a little bit. Nashville is a good defensive team, so if they can hold that part together, they also added Borowicki. So he's going to help with the penalty kill and settle that down and everything. So their goaltending probably shouldn't hurt them, but I just think that if Nashville had a goalie better than Rene and Saros, they would be that number 2 team for me for sure, maybe even number 1. But there's also nothing stopping them from maybe moving Rene to Arizona for Kemper maybe, or something like that, right? Like there's nothing stopping a move from that, which could change everything again.
But, it's gonna be exciting. Talking hockey's getting my juices flowing, Tori.
Right.
Sure, yeah. All right.
So let me just quickly go through Detroit for a second. So they got Larkin, Mantha, Nielsen, Helm, Bertuzzi, Filppula, Fabry, Nemestikov, Bobby Ryan, and then that Lucas Raymond I was talking about, a bunch of other prospects they've been keeping in the minors, like a bunch of other prospects. And then they added Mark Stahl, which he's not amazing, but he'll help settle that D down.
Yep.
For sure. I don't like the rest of their D. Their D actually is pretty weak. They've got Stahl, DeKaiser, Nemeth, Stetcher, John Merrill, Alex Biega, Philip Peronic, and then Moritz Seider.
Where he ended up. I remember that now.
Yeah, so that's why I don't think they can make the playoffs. But I do believe they're better than Chicago. That's why I went that deep into Detroit.
Okay.
And one last thing. No, I'll write this down for later.
Okay.
Trades.
Okay.
People I think will be dealt this year of name, but I'll get back on that.
Okay, sounds good. Prediction for division finals?
Playoffs?
Yeah.
Well, what did you have? You had Tampa, Nashville. What's your final 4?
So my final 4 is this. Tampa. I'm actually sticking with my final 4. I'm moving Florida up to 5th. I until they show me it, man, I'm not. It kind of goes to what we were talking about earlier in fantasy. Until they prove me otherwise, I'm not a believer. So I'm gonna have them as 5th. I got Tampa, Nashville, Carolina, Columbus. A rematch of Columbus, Tampa Bay, with Tampa taking it again. Nashville taking it over Carolina. Because I also have Nashville taking the division as a whole, going to the final
four.
Over Tampa.
Okay. So Alex has Nashville.
And this could potentially be like my crazy. My final 4 could potentially not make the playoffs. Like this is my most ludicrous prediction, I think.
I just changed my prediction on this division on the fly here.
Okay, let's hear it.
So I'm still stuck between Dallas, Nashville for 2-3. If Dallas can stay afloat for those first few games, I got them easy number 2. If Nashville goaltending keeps up, or they get themselves a goaltender, which they have the assets, I believe, to do so, then I take them. But I'll take them 2 or 3, however you want to cut it.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna take Florida. So I'll do my revamped division because you'll like this. So Tampa, Dallas, Nashville, Florida, Columbus, Detroit, Carolina, Chicago.
Okay.
And in the playoffs, so I'd have Tampa versus Florida, and I would take Tampa, even though that would be a 7-game series and a probably 7-game double overtime game. And then Dallas, Nashville. So again, whoever takes it from each other, whoever gets healthy or whoever adds whoever, and then between that, I would say whoever wins that series between Dallas, Nashville wins the division.
Okay. So I did revamp my bottom 4 from our discussion. I got Florida, Dallas, Chicago, Detroit. So basically, I just bumped Florida.
Still keeping Detroit. You're still keeping Detroit down there.
Yeah. Okay. Even though you got me on their hype train, I owe Patty Kane a little bit of favors after last year, so I'll give it to him.
Fair enough.
All right, you want to move on to this East? Is it East? Yeah, East division. This one is for me is a fucking this one is. This could go any which way for me. I have one team cemented in last, and then after that, I've been moving teams around like nonstop. Maybe the bottom 2. I'm probably pretty sold on my bottom 2 now.
Yeah, I am too, but our bottom 2 aren't the same. Bottom one is. We can agree the Devils are the worst, yeah?
Yeah, but at the same time, they can't be the worst forever, so you never know when they're going to turn it around. I just don't think they could. I don't think it's this year. I don't think it's this year.
Let me just ask you this. Remember the Devils, like, mystique, and then the Devils were just, like, shit, and then all of a sudden they're in the Cup final, and then they're shit? Like, it was luck. There was no curve. It's just, like, that's luck. If your curve is that's luck. Or situational advantage taking, however you want to call it.
They haven't had their picks really pan out. Their goalies haven't panned out. I know they got new goalies this year. Forget who.
Yeah, I don't know why Crawford chose to go to the Devils.
Yeah,
that confused me.
I don't know.
Blackwood and Crawford's a solid tandem, but like at 36, 37, why would you choose to go to New Jersey?
Maybe
when there were some other teams that were interested.
Area.
Yeah,
New Jersey's more of a one of the might be a place to live that people sometimes choose.
I think it is, yeah. But I don't know.
After that, with the Devils, the one thing I want to touch on, it is sophomore year for. I don't want to call him Quinn Hughes, but for Jack Hughes.
Hughes.
Yeah, so
Jack Hughes,
he was not an impact player last year, but who can really blame him with what was around him? Will he ever flourish into that first overall pick that he was destined that he was? That's really the question I have about him. I don't.
Not until he gets help.
Yeah.
Who did Jersey take with their first rounder this year? Do you remember?
No.
I want to say it was Alexander Holtz.
Alexander Holt, yeah. 7th overall.
Yeah, so Alexander Holtz is like, he's not really power forward, but he's like a bigger, stronger shooter. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say a Patrick Laine because Laine's a bit lazy, but like maybe like a Mark Stone kind of guy.
Okay.
So like bit better shooter. I don't know. I'm struggling to think of a guy off the top of my head, but like he's a good shooting winger, like a good kind of I'll say Patrick Laine type mold, but slightly different kind of finishing pieces on him. So like him on the side with Hughes is pretty solid, and I'll add the other guy I was going to say to my trade list. We'll come back to that.
Okay. So
I think they're going to acquire a big name, but we'll get back to that.
Who did you have in your second last? I forgot.
You sure you want to know?
Is it the Pangs? It's the Penguins, isn't it? Oh, Penguins. Geez. Oh, geez.
Yeah. I do not like the Penguins.
No. Even with their top-tier talent at the top.
I think it's time to get rid of the GM. I think he's lost his marbles again. He lost his marbles in Carolina, and he was given the reign like 3 years too long. And
set them back.
ran the Hurricanes into the ground. And I'm very fearful that the Penguins get back to where they were in terms of before they got Fleury and Crosby and everything. And like, we all have to remember Crosby is one hit to the head away from potential retirement. Now, so is everyone, but him more so because he's already had 2 severe concussions and neck issues and stuff. So like, not thinking or hoping or whatever that he could get hurt, but like, their team to me is just cycling through these wingers that Crosby's manufacturing into players, and they're turning them out. And the GM, I don't think, has the capacity to turn that into assets that help the team. And what proves that more so is how much he gave up for Kasperi Kapanen. Sorry, not Sammy Kapanen. Kasperi Kapanen. Like, I think he played his cards, and I think he lost really, really bad in that trade. And I'm not saying that because I'm a Leafs fan, but I'm saying that because like Kasperi Kapanen proved in Toronto after 10, 11, 12 chances he couldn't play in the top 2 lines. And the way that the lines are constructed in Toronto in the top 2 are completely different. Like in the top line with Matthews, obviously your job is kind of to try and recover the puck, play safe, and support him. Or on the second line, Tavares kind of does that job. So your job is to kind of get in and take shots and get some goals and whatever. And he couldn't fill either role. So like his main 2 skills were his hardness of his shot and his speed. But I've watched Kapanen play for the Marlies probably about at least 12 times live as well. He's a huge glass shooter. He's one of those guys that every time he comes flying down on the penalty kill, he either wires it top shelf and it looks really nice, or it's off the glass and around, and then it's a 3-on-2 the other way. And yeah, he's fast and he can catch the play as that next guy. But if something happens on that original play and it's in the back of your net, you just hand-fed a 3-on-2 or a 3-on-1 to your opponent when you should have just.
Pittsburgh's weakness as a team the past.
I don't watch them, so I didn't know that. So if that's their weakness, and then I think that Pittsburgh's defense has gotten older, slower, worse with the puck, and worse with zone exits. I think there's going to be a lot more time with the puck in the Penguin zone, and I think there's going to be a lot of their scoring is going to be fast break scoring, and going to be stuff off the rush. And I just don't. I said this many times. I'm not a Jari fan.
Yeah, that's where we differ.
I like Saros and Bernier more than I do Jari. So that tells you right there.
I like Jari better than both those guys.
I know a lot of people do. I'm not a believer of Jari. I've watched him in the minors a bunch, and like he's always been pretty solid in the minors. But like to me, he's one of those goalies that like he's a positional guy. So as long as he's in the right position, he makes the saves. But as soon as he starts to swim, or as soon as the defense in front of him gives up premier opportunities, he might not make as many saves, and he might not make the highlight saves. And then at that point, 13, 14 extra goals on the season could be the difference this season of 5 wins.
Yeah, and just to be perfectly clear, like I could easily just be blindsided by Penguins bias here. Like
a lot of people I talk to that aren't Penguins fans are fans of Jari, and like for me, I put him on my do not draft list. And he's a keeper. I do not like him. Like I said, I like Saros better. I like Bernier better. There's probably about 20 goalies I like better than him.
So that's fair.
If not 25. So
All right, and do you want to talk about my second worst team? I think that I have tattooed in here. I don't know. I might have changed it from when I sent it to you, so I'm gonna go out and say
maybe
it's Boston.
Okay.
I don't think I think kind of what you're saying with the Penguins. They've been walking this fine line for so long. They've been winning for so long. They're on this downward trajectory. They've been up here for years and years and years. And they're just running out of assets themselves. They have their one killer line, and after that, for me, it falls off steeply and quickly across all lines, defense pairings. Yeah, that's my take.
I disagree with the forwards. Defense, I agree. I like their forwards.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that their forwards should get a bit more respect.
Not getting it here. Not getting it here. Vancouver, remember. We're Vancouver fans over here.
Touche, and I'm also a Leaf fan, so like I hate the Bruins, but
yeah, everybody hates the Bruins. So I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to throw them some bad mojo, trying to give it to them. Maybe it's because I can't draft Marchand in the next couple days. Maybe it's all these things intertwined. But I'm hoping for a Boston early exit this year. So I got him second bottom.
You're probably going to be right on that because I made a bet with Nick last year, and a lot of my bets are right. They're just in the wrong year. So, like, a lot of stuff that I make predictions and bets on are often true just a year later, a year after. And I made a bet with Nick that the Bruins were going to miss the playoffs last year. And he's like, "You're crazy." I'm like, "No, I don't think it'll be close."
Yeah, and I'm not high on their goalies. Like, Rask is kind of a question mark with how it all went down last season for me.
Mentality-wise, yeah.
Yeah, and, like, they do have a solid backup when he's sharing, but, like,
getting older.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think this is finally the year.
Defense is shit.
It's kind of like Detroit, how they had that long ass run for so long, and everything good comes to an end eventually. And I feel like this is the time for Boston. It's kind of like a short season. Maybe
they use it as an advantage. Close the book or whatever. I said from the day that they signed Chara, the moment that Chara retires or leaves Boston will be when they take their next
step
downfall or whatever. Yeah. And I think they knew that. And, like, to me, looking at their D, there's a clear hole. There's a massive hole on their back end. And one of their prospects who they've been bringing along slowly but not actually giving great opportunity to has been all over trade rumors, which to me suggests that they're not a huge fan for him, / they understand maybe it's best he goes to another team and actually gets good minutes, and we get a guy that can come in and give us good minutes. So I think that they're going to trade for a defenseman. I don't know which one. The one that seems most logical to me is Oliver Ekman-Larsson. I could also potentially see a reunion with Calgary and Noah Hannafin.
All right, put that on the trade list that you're trying to talk about. All right.
Done.
So we've touched on 3 teams. Where do you want to, like, go to the top side of this now? Keep going from the bottom up?
Yeah, so I mean, I think you've kind of it's hard because, like, with Boston, for me, I had a hard time placing them just because of that top line. And like I said, their forwards are pretty solid. Looking at it, they've got so Marchand, Bergeron, and Pasternak. That line is going to carry you through a lot of games, but when they're not hot, they need something else, which they have DeBrusk, Krejci, and Kasha, which Kasha hasn't been healthy since they've got him. Mm-hmm. And, like, he was one of the big players and big scorers on Anaheim before they picked him up with Richie. So, like, I think he's due for a pretty solid rebound. Like, I think he's similar to, like, an Ehlers or an Oshie.
Okay. Yeah.
Just smaller, smaller.
Yeah, I haven't seen him hit that stride yet of that high, but potential maybe.
But then they've got Anders Bjork, who's one of their younger guys who's pretty good, and then Charlie Coyle and Craig Smith. And then their fourth line is Nick Ritchie, who's going to be annoying past Sean Corrali and Chris Wagner. Like, their forwards are pretty deep. They've got all their roles filled. Their coach is good at using their role players. They're going to have a solid power play. Tuukka Rask scares me, just in 2 respects. One, I think he already had to choose if he opts out, but, like, is he going to be mentally there? Because if Boston chews up players, and if he doesn't have a good start and Boston's struggling and they are as bad as you kind of have them in where I think they're going to end up lower, I think they're going to turn on him. And I think it's going to be easy for Rask to just go to the GM and be like, look, I'm going home tomorrow, or trade me.
Yep.
And if he goes home, I wouldn't be surprised if he said, you know what, I'm just going to retire. He's one of those guys
Tim
that,
Thomas,
like, I'm not putting it by him.
Yeah. His mentor.
Like, maybe he does. Or maybe he says, you know, I want to be, because I do believe he's got some medical issues with his daughter. Mm-hmm. So, like, maybe he wants to be close to a place that has a certain medical facility or something like that, which could mean he says, you know, I want to go to these 2 places for whatever I can get. Yeah. Which could change the game for certain things, right? Like, let's say he's like, I want to go to Colorado, and if I don't go to Colorado, I'm going to retire. I'll take $4 million per. Imagine he went to a team like that for $4 million per, a team that already has, like, an advantage. Like, that could change the whole league.
Yep.
Make it happy again for him to play and stuff, right? So, like, that's what I'm worried about for Boston and Rask. So, like, but I have to give too much respect for that top line. Like, I don't I think they're better than the Rangers and the Sabres. Explain to me why they're not.
I think
I know you're high on the Sabres.
I am high. I bumped them down from my original first place.
Yeah,
Um,
you had them first.
yeah. Well, to be honest, these next six to me could literally go anyway. Like even though I have the Islanders as sixth, it feels very disrespectful to have them sixth. Because they're better than
Right?
they're a playoff team in my mind. Like the next six teams are playoff teams in my mind. But
Yeah.
in this scenario, two of them are gonna have to miss, and for me, this is a little bit shake up of what I sent you. I have Islanders missing, and I have Philadelphia missing. Um,
Damn.
yeah, yeah. For Philadelphia specifically, their goalie situation, Hart, it's his second year. It's gonna be a lot of games. Elliott, I don't think is a good goalie. I'm not
I
super.
agree.
I'm not super sold that Philadelphia has good defense, especially. Who did they lose to? Oh, they lost to the Islanders only. But I don't know. I'm not sold. I don't think the Flyers have that star player to take them to
Yeah.
a promised land. Like they don't have that. They're lacking that. So that's why I
Yeah.
would give Buffalo the edge over them. I think goalie wise, it's a wash. Uh, I know you're thinking I'm crazy, but
Not really.
I don't put a lot of weight into Hart. I think he's a great goalie, but I don't put a lot of weight
Yeah.
into his impact on the outcome of this season.
I agree.
Um,
Yeah.
and then when I go to the Islanders, I know I'm making a
So
mistake.
sorry, who did you have first?
So from our talk, I've actually moved Washington into first.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if that was on this podcast or when we were talking about fantasy, just going over their teams, and their defense and their goalies. Like I didn't realize when I was
Yeah.
researching they actually signed a backup goalie. I thought they were strictly going
Well, it's
naked.
PTO yet, but they're going to.
So.
Craig Anderson's a PTO, but I'm sure they'll sign him.
But yeah, and then I have the Rangers as second, and I was high on the Rangers late last season too. I said they were going to make the playoffs before COVID hit, right? That was part of
Yeah.
my thing. So I think they just get all these free players essentially that are first overall pick. They got their defense. I think is fairly decent and has lots of depth.
Yeah.
A lot of underrated guys
Still
on that
young.
defense. Very young, but sometimes that's a bonus
Yeah.
when the rest of the team is fairly young. They've upgraded now that they don't have Lundqvist in net. They have two pretty solid goalies that they can count on. At least in the past they have. So I have them as second in the division.
Yeah. I struggled, man. I still can't even pick. Like this is the hardest one, I think.
It was
I think
the
this is
hardest to pick.
one.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, like for me, Washington 1 is easy. Jersey last is easy. For me, Pittsburgh second last is easy.
That's how I felt about Boston.
Every time I look at it, I want to negotiate in my head why I like one over the other, because like you've touched on a lot of it. Like Philly, I want to say Philly's last year had a lot to do with Lindblom. And oftentimes when something happens, somebody dies, somebody, gets a disease or gets cancer, somebody, something happens like that. It brings people together, right? And like, how much more powerful was the team last year just because of the bondness or whatever you want to call it, that you can't really, like, isn't tangible, but it was there. Like, I mean, all these teams you see go on cup runs, how many times do you see them come out the next year and they're just flat? They just don't have the same magic. And Niskanen retired. Everything I hear from him, he was one of the big defensemen back when Washington was like a monster every year. And he was in Dallas when Dallas was good. And he just seems to me like one of those underrated, almost like Francois Beauchemin, just one of those guys who like he never plays in the top pairing, but he's always that like monster on the second pairing that's just a rock. And I don't know. I can't pick who's going to be because there's clear holes on each one. Like I love what you said about the Rangers. Like the Rangers are definitely the team that's projecting the best.
Mm-hmm. That's part
I
of
just
what was
don't
gifted to
know.
them, yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
think,
can't pick.
and
I
like
don't know.
for Buffalo, their biggest concern is going to be goalie. I know they have a
Yes.
lot banked on Allmark. They've been thinking he's going to be their goalie for a number of years
But
now.
why haven't they been playing him then?
The, they kind of do what we talk about over other podcasts, how they're switching to this two goalie system, right? Hutton is like he is what he is.
Excuse.
Maybe they
It's a
were
lame
running one.
excuse.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe this is the year they finally do.
As far as I'm concerned, if you believe in the guy in last year or the beginning of last year when Hutton was garbage and you still tried to make sure Hutton got in the net, like I can appreciate and understand that you're trying to make sure that Hutton just doesn't sit on the bench, go cold and rot away. I can totally understand that and appreciate that. But like I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So that's the biggest question mark when it comes to Buffalo for me, and I think that's
Sorry.
a pretty clear. It's all good. One.
I
Pittsburgh,
don't know how to turn those off.
I'm much higher on Jari than you. I think Pittsburgh's defense is stronger than you think it is. With Marino, he's really stepped up for them last year, and I think he's going to keep going forward for them. I think Pittsburgh's depth on forward can potentially be unmatched in this division.
See, where I struggle
Well,
the
maybe
most is that I find the NHL more so now is a league that's like it's not about the top players. Like it is, but it's more about the third and fourth lines. That's where the difference is made, especially over an 82 game season. But now that we're all shortened and compact, none of us really know how that's going to impact a lot of stuff, which is also why I'm struggling. But like, I don't know. I mean, I guess we're going to have to conclude this division somehow. I think Washington is going to come out of it. I don't think it really matters.
Yeah.
Who else is in that?
I have it just
I don't know.
For purposes Pittsburgh versus Washington final.
Okay.
Just Pittsburgh beating Rangers, Washington beating Buffalo in the first round. All right.
I had to pick four just for the record. I'll go Washington, Boston, Islanders,
Yikes.
Rangers, Sabres, Rangers, Flyers, Sabres, Penguins, Devils.
All right.
And then I would go, it doesn't matter, Washington coming out.
All right. Sounds good. All right, let's move. We're saving the North for last, so let's move on to this Western Division.
This one's easy for me. So.
Without Canadian teams, it's pretty easy for me because you know where my heart lies. So.
Yep.
I don't think I moved anything around from what I sent you on this one.
Yeah, you had Vegas first, I believe, right?
Yeah. Which.
I don't have them first, but what's your tier or tiers?
This one's pretty simple for me. It's Vegas, Colorado, St. Louis, top tiers. Those three, no matter what, those three are making the playoffs. Like it's not a question for me. The fourth team, is where it gets a little bit debatable. To me, it's really a dogfight between two teams, in my perspective.
What teams will not make the playoffs from this division?
Arizona.
What teams have you already written off?
Arizona, Kings, Ducks.
Okay.
Sorry.
Go back now to your four there.
It's a toss-up. I got Minnesota
I just wanted to know
in there. I got Minnesota, but I do think the Sharks are not as bad as they were last year.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of giving up, I think, on them. I don't know, though. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think so. Yeah, I don't know what to make of them. I don't. I don't know. Like, Martin Jones, I thought was a terrible contract. Marc-Edouard Vlasic is the most disgusting contract.
I don't know what those contracts are, but I'm going to take your word for it.
So Marc-Edouard Vlasic, I think, is 34 now, and he has like 6 or 7 more years at like 6.5. So he's paid to like 41 at like 6 something. And like last year he was garbage. So like no one's taking that on. And if you buy out that's a lot of money for the Sharks to buy out for no one. Like for somebody to not play for them, right? So he might just be locked in there. So, but I just wanted to touch the top for a sec. You had the 3 teams, and you have Vegas. Who 2? Who's number 2?
Colorado, St. Louis.
Okay. Yeah, I struggled with trying to pick these 3 because I feel like they're all really similar.
Yep.
But they all have different weaknesses. So I don't know how they're going to match up against each other. Like, I think the best team in terms of mojo and everything is actually St. Louis. I think that they're the best built team with the least amount of problems. And then they'd also be getting Tarasenko back towards the end, if not just for the playoffs, much like Tampa would be getting Kucherov back for the playoffs. I think that could be huge for them. I love the addition of Torrey Krug for them. Like, I'm not a big Krug fan myself, but I think that was a perfect ad. I think him and Parayko are going to be a fantastic
I didn't realize
tandem.
he went to that team, to be honest.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they have, I just, there's some, like, St. Louis isn't as good as they were when they went for the cup, but who else? They also got Hoffman. So they got Hoffman, they got Shen. Who else did they get? They got somebody else. I can't remember who they got. But they got somebody else.
What was that? Are you talking about signing?
I thought they signed somebody else that was, they got Clifford. Kyle Clifford will be a nice little ad for them in the bottom of the lineup to give them some sandpaper and that playoff. Like, you look at all the teams that we're talking about in the playoffs, they all have that one player in the bottom line who's a shit disturber, who's a power forward, who's a fighter, who's a guy that, especially in a hard-fought division, is going to make a difference. And the teams that don't have that guy are going to be run amok on, and I think that they're going to struggle. And, I mean, I don't like what's going on in Vegas just about how many guys they're talking about trading and how they already just pulled everything on and now they have to force somebody out. So now they're going to have to make something happen, and it could make them...
It could fuck everything up, yeah.
Yeah, or screw up the chemistry or whatever, because I don't know who are their guys there, right?
Well, they got to definitely make room for Cody Glass this year. He's got to play more.
Yeah.
So I'm be interested. Probably a forward's going to be going out.
Yeah.
I would guess.
But if you move Patches, I would say Patches and Stone were probably the 2 leaders of that forward group.
I would not want to move. Personally, I do not want neither of those guys to go. I don't want anyone really on the team to go, right?
What's the talk? It's Marchessault, Fleury, or Pacioretty. Those are the rumors I'm hearing. One of those 3 are going. And if it's not them, it's 2 or 3 other bodies that are paid, 2 or 3, which I don't know who those guys are or if they have them even. But I don't know how they're going to clear it. I do think that the other thing that I want to say, sorry, is that I was watching from a distance where there was 4 teams who had to make moves or get lucky or find a way to get under the cap. And there was only 4 teams, 5 teams willing to take on that money. And now there's about 2 teams left with no clear-cut money takers. So, I'm really curious to find out how they're going to find a partner. I don't think it's about paying the right price. I think it's actually about finding a partner. And if you can't find a partner, what's the penalty going to be? What's the NHL going to do when they step in if Vegas can't? The clock's ticking. They've got to the 13th to get under the cap. And if every team says, I'm clicking, no,
Wouldn't you
more,
if you're
offer more.
Yeah, if you're... That's
I'd have them against the barrel. Yeah. You're screwed. I mean, I'd be I'd hope I'm the team that ends up getting the benefit of this, so I wouldn't try to push it too far. But, I'd push it. And if it kept going, I'd keep pushing.
Curious, what
and I'd be
happens?
Yeah, you want Patches? Give me a top player.
What actually happens if you're over the cap?
We don't know. No one's done it.
Oh, man.
It says there's monetary and draft pick penalties.
Oh, okay.
But, who knows? And, I'm sure Vegas knows internally.
Yeah.
I'm sure the NHL's probably said to them, you have till the 13th to get under this, and this will happen if you don't. I'm sure they know.
All right.
But we won't. But, yeah, so I'm curious to see, because I thought Vegas was going to – the talk that I heard was Vegas was going to line up with Ottawa. And then Vegas lined up and got Paquette and Coburn and whatever from Tampa. So Tampa solved their problem, and Ottawa finished providing their relief option to the league. So they both fell off the table. I'm forgetting the other one that recently did a trade too. Who was the other one that did a trade? Someone else did a trade like that, but that knocked those two partners off also. So, Tampa. Well, I guess Tampa, right? Because they did that trade, and then they had Kucherov go on LTIR, which let them sign everyone else, which just pushed the problem down till next summer.
Yeah.
But if you have time, use it, right?
Yep.
But yeah, let's get back, because I love Colorado, St. Louis, and Vegas, but I don't know which way they're gonna settle up.
Yeah, like it could go either way, but obviously I'm gonna pick Vegas because I'm a fanboy. So.
But why do you hate the Kings so much?
What's
wrong with the Kings?
Their defense, I think.
Fair.
They don't have like amazing depth. They have a bunch of unproven young guys.
Yeah, that's kind of fair.
I like their goalies.
Yeah.
Cal Peterson's gonna take that crease over one day.
Yeah, you're high on him. I think he's just another guy.
I am high on him. I don't know. Like the Kings, like they're good players. Are old. Like, can Kopitar really keep up what he's been doing all these years with the team he's got around him? I'm not so sure.
I do. I believe so. I believe more so because of the talent that's coming. Like, they've got so many good young forwards, and they've got a couple good young defensemen. I think that they're all going to kind of play this year because they're being forced to play.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, they're going to make mistakes. They're not going to be the team that can close out. They're going to make a lot of mistakes, when the goalie's pulled and they've got an extra attacker and stuff like that. But I don't think they're going to have a problem scoring. I don't think that they're going to have a problem with the older guys. They've
been a very high Corsi shots on goal team the past couple of years.
Yeah.
So. You might be right.
I don't think they're going to be amazing.
I would probably edge them ahead of Anaheim, really, to be honest.
I don't really like Anaheim.
I'm looking at my thing. And who knows? Like, the Sharks could be done. Like, they could be on their way to doing what Boston's doing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well,
I could be wrong. I still don't think LA makes the playoffs, but I might have them.
Who do you have as 4?
Minnesota.
Okay. So between you're now saying you're debating between the Kings, the Sharks, and the Wild?
Maybe not.
That last
the Wild I have as 4th right now. I don't.
Okay, for
I have
sure
them
as
above
4th.
the Kings. Yeah, for sure. Maybe I don't.
And the Sharks.
And the Sharks, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Because for me, I have the Kings, the Sharks, and the Wild all in the same tier, and like, I think that they all bring their own thing. Like, I think the Kings have the best moving forward potential of the 3, but maybe it just doesn't line up this year. But maybe next year it might be.
That's kind of what my understanding.
Yeah.
I think the Wild are just a little bit ahead, like in terms of.
Just don't like their goalies.
And didn't they get some new goalie this year?
Well, they got they got Talbot.
Oh yeah, that's nothing to get excited about.
They have Talbot and Stalock, which
Stalock's alright.
Yeah, they're okay, but I mean, and then you go to the Sharks, and like, I like a lot of the pieces on the Sharks. Here's my hot take on the Sharks. I think Burns is going to be moved up to a forward this year, and that is just strictly from a monetary / I'm trying to make sure that my assets don't all mold on me as a general manager play, because of what I just touched on with the Vlasic. You have Vlasic, Carlson, and Burns, all 3 defensemen tied up to like, I don't know what it is. It's like 6, 8, 9 or something like that. It's like 20 million or something like that on 3 defensemen. And like, San Jose is going to be going to struggle a little bit on forward to score. Just because like it's a changing of the guard a little bit with Thornton leaving. Not that he was the big guy last year, but like, it's just different now. So guys can just kind of take roles now instead of having to kind of tiptoe around stuff.
Maybe the Sharks are on the verge of inventing a new style of hockey.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Like, and here's the other thing is the Sharks don't have any assets. So like, if you don't have any assets and you're not good, what do? You rebuild, right? But if you can't move pieces out, like the Leafs back in the day, the good old Muskoka 5, like, you're just, if the Sharks can't find a way to make this work, especially after picking up Dubnyk, and now having Dubnyk and Jones also taking up another 10 million, like half of their cap is their 2 goalies and 3 defensemen. And then you've got Evander Kane and Couture up front, and then you've got Hurdle and Meyer needing contracts. You got LeBanc coming off his already team-friendly deal. Like, you got Marlowe leaving next year. Not that he's a big piece, but again, another body. Like, you don't have a play. Your cards are on the table.
Yeah.
Right? There's no way.
They're in trouble.
And like, to me, if I was in charge, I would be like, I'm sorry, Burns, you're playing us forward so that Carlson and Vlasic can eat up more minutes. And if they can't, well, then our owners need to see that and give me the option as the GM to buy them out or to attach our next first round pick to some team that's willing to do that, which they wouldn't be. It would be like 3 first rounders to get rid of that deal. But like, and I still don't think that would be enough, but if not, what are you going to do?
Definitely
just
painted themselves
sit there
into a corner of mediocrity at this point.
And even if you're the new GM, what new GM if what's his name gets fired, who wants to go there? What are you going to do with that team?
Well,
are you going to turn that team around?
To say to that is that there is only 30 jobs, so they're pretty prestigious.
30, they are, 32, but whatever. I would be a guy that would be like, if I was an old guy that had already been through it and I have my reputation made, yeah, absolutely, I'd do it because it's a role. If that's my first opportunity, absolutely no way I'm not taking that because I'm being set up to fail. And if I'm the new guy and I fail and I fall on my face, I may never get another chance again.
That's true.
So I'm not going to throw myself on the sword in that situation for that. But
I'm eager right now. I've been looking at this next division. I'm chomping at the bit here.
We haven't finished yet though. So what are your playoffs though in the West?
Oh yeah, playoffs. I got Vegas versus Colorado final.
And who in the final?
Come on, I got Vegas. Is that even a question? St. Louis going to the final?
St. Louis. Yep. All right. Well,
we the North. This is the division that all the Canadians have been sticking around for. This is I don't know, it feels like it honestly kind of has a little bit of like an Olympic feel to it to me. That all these Canadian cities are just going to be going at it all season long. And it's kind of exciting to see I'm going to see a lot of Austin Matthews. I'm going to see a lot of McDavid. I'm going to see this up-and-coming Ottawa team that has a little bit of excitement to it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not too keen on Montreal, but they always have a huge cornerstone in the history of the league, so that's exciting for me. I think I switched up a little bit of my predictions, and to the detriment of the Calgary fans that watch this and know that I get them wrong every time. So I made one little flip from my what I sent you. So
yeah. So do we agree on number 1?
We do, but I'm not sold. I'll be honest.
Really?
Yeah.
I think anyone that doesn't have them and isn't believing on them is crazy. And I'm not trying to pass the juice around or anything like that. But like, I'm a big believer that last year the Leafs were, I wouldn't say necessarily an unlucky team, but they had a lot of tough bounces, and like there was a lot of ways they found to lose that are not normal ways to lose. And a little
bit of a circus around Babcock, around Keefe. It was
all that. Yeah. They lost Morgan Riley, they lost Jake Muzzin, they lost like their entire D-core. Freddie didn't have a great year, but he played okay, but he didn't have defense in front of him. So you can't really hold that against him either. So you got to think better D, deeper D, stronger D, more physical D, more penalty killing D, more D that will protect and stand up for Freddie. So Freddie doesn't have to I don't know how many games you watched of the Leafs last year, but I got annoyed, and I get annoyed when goalies get run all the time because I think it's unfair because then now you're making a goalie put his head in his neck in the line of trusting that somebody is going to stop going Mach 1 and not break his neck or jar his neck and give him, sustaining long-term injuries. So I think that that's going to go a long way for the Leafs. I think that there's we talk about regression back to the norm. I think that there's going to be the other way for the Leafs. I think that there was probably 10 or 12 points on the board last year that should have been theirs that weren't there for stupid reasons that have now been fixed in theory. So I think that they're actually a better team on paper than they were last year. And on top of that, I think a lot of their competitors are actually worse than they were on paper last year. So I think if you add 6 or 8 points for the Leafs and you take away, some points of their opponents, I think it adds both ways and makes them an even better team.
Yeah, and I would rank the Leafs as potentially one of the biggest benefactors of these new divisions.
Yeah.
They're not going to see Boston the whole season.
Yeah.
Unless
but who knows? Maybe this would be the year they own them.
Exactly, but they're not going to just. It's one of those things in your head. They're not going to see Tampa. They're not going to see all the tough teams. They're not going to see any of the Metro. Like those are tough games to play all the time. They're playing Canada's teams. And last year, if we looked at win percentage by last year of all the divisions, this one is the weakest.
Yeah, but there's a different vibe playing in this division, and I think it shows that by looking at some of these guys who signed one-year deals, these Canadian boys who signed one-year deals on Canadian teams, because they know they want a piece of this pie. They want to be in this battle, regardless of where they are. Like I know Corey Perry, for example. I know he wanted to be in Toronto or he wanted to be in out west, like on Edmonton or something. But he had other options and stuff in the Metro and the Central, whatever it's called. But he chose East because he wanted to be in the North Division, right? He wanted to say I got to play in those games because he's a good old-fashioned Canadian boy.
This division at the end of the day is going to get the spotlight because of how Canada treats the NHL. Like if you wanted to make
we also have broadcasting, Canadian broadcasting, so it's going to be.
Exactly. No, I know.
It's going to be.
Yeah, so this is a chance for players to shine and kind of create some stardom around them in that way. Yeah, for sure.
One of the articles I was reading this morning is this division will make Matthew Tkachuk a household name. And I'm like, if you're a hockey fan, he already is a household name. But for the people who are like, oh, we see him once a year and, he's a goof, he just takes too many penalties. No, some games he does, but other games he can own you. Yep. So, people are going to be like, damn, this guy's one of those, 6 guys in the league that can still play this style, right?
Yep.
So it's funny that his brother's the other one. That's going to be fun to watch. I'll watch Ottawa versus Calgary to watch the two brothers play. Why not?
They're going to play what is it? They play 10 games against each team too?
9 and 10 versus everyone, I think it is. Yeah.
Loving it. All right, this is
it's going to be AHL. It's going to be back-to-back or 2 and 3 or 3 and 4 nights. Maybe not the same opponents, but you're going to be it's not going to be Montreal, Edmonton, Vancouver, Ottawa. It's going to be, Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, maybe Winnipeg on the way home, and then whatever, if they're playing in Canada.
Yeah, we don't even know that part yet, right?
Yeah.
I think
so
go ahead. What were you saying?
I was just going to say, so Toronto tier 1, we said their own tier, or do you have somebody in the same tier?
You've convinced me. I'll give them their own tier. I'm on the fence, but then this next tier, I think I don't even know. Part of me feels like this. Yeah, this next tier is probably all the same. I got Vancouver as my number 2. I've been drinking a lot of the Kool-Aid. I got Edmonton number 3. And then I moved Calgary up into number 4. So that's where I have those 3 kind of in the same tier, and I have the next 3 in their own separate tier, and maybe even Ottawa on a tier of its own at the bottom.
Okay. See, when I go through the tiers, I always go A, B, C, D, and then F. And then I skip E, but F are the teams that are just off the map for me. Not that they shouldn't bother playing, but you might as well not play. And I only had a couple of those teams. Ottawa for me is nowhere close to that division or that tier. Yeah. I had them in the D tier, so the lowest possible before that. But that's for me is still teams that are still competitive, but either are on the downswing that are about to fall down into that F tier, or the teams that are rising up and are the way to a higher tier. Yeah,
they're rising up for sure.
Oh, absolutely. They could even rise to maybe tier C. I don't think Ottawa's going to give up any easy nights.
Nope.
I don't love their goaltending. But they're just a team, what we were talking about Detroit earlier, that's just a bunch of people that want to prove people wrong, that are going to work hard every night, some younger talent, some physical talent, some talent, like talent. Like they've got some talented young players that are going to be
Yeah,
added.
and that's how what I would give them the edge on Detroit. Like Detroit, they have those guys in
Mm-hmm.
positions right now,
Yeah,
and they
for
were a little,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I had them in the same division. Like for me, I had Arizona, Anaheim, Chicago, and New Jersey in that F tier I was referring to. And then
Who's
in that
sorry?
next tier up,
Chicago, New Jersey.
Arizona,
Okay.
Anaheim,
Okay.
Chicago, and New Jersey. And then that next tier up is Ottawa, LA, Minnesota, San Jose, Carolina, Detroit, and Pittsburgh.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, so like I struggled with this division. I do believe Montreal is going to finish second. I believe they're the second best team on paper. I believe that they have a lot of pieces people are just ignoring.
It's
Like
possible.
I'm not a Drew fan. I'm not. I'm just simply not. I don't think he's a great player, but
Hmm.
he's absolutely an NHL hockey player who can put up some points for you, especially if you can put him on the second or third pair or third line, and he can eat up other teams' secondary and
Yeah.
complementary lines instead of primary lines. And I think if you put him on your primary lines, you're just setting him up for failure. So like, I think that Domi overshadowed him a lot too. So I think that now that he is gone, I think that he's going to have a better opportunity to kind of just do his thing. But a guy that a lot of people are forgetting about and not talking about is Noah Juleson. He's a defenseman. He
Okay.
came up a couple years ago and he was a monster for them. He ate a ton of minutes. He played so good. Like he was almost like a Yossi or like a Brodeen, just one of those kind of like really good hockey players that doesn't really excel at one thing, but just plays everything kind of really well.
Yeah.
So I have a good feeling about him. Um, Not top pair, but again in the bottom pair. And then you've got that crap. I'm forgetting his name right now. The Russian kid,
Kokanemi.
defenseman.
Oh.
No, Romanov.
Romanov. Yeah.
Alexander Romanov, who is not supposed to be a big offensive guy, but he likes to blast the puck and he's got a really good shot that gets through traffic and he loves to throw open hits. So I have a feeling he'll be placed with Weber, which
Okay.
then you can put Edmondson with Jolson, which leaves them with, I forget off the top of my head, but it's like another really strong third pairing. And then they've also got another good, almost fourth pairing. And then they've got Price and Allen, which I think could be the best tandem in the league, or at least top five in the league.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then their forwards, I think that they have three, maybe four lines that can score. Like, yeah, they'll be hot and cold. If they're all cold at the same time, they're going to really struggle to score goals. But I have to think that at least one of the lines will be clicking. So they'll score 2 or 3 goals every game. I don't think their scoring will be their issue anymore.
Mhm.
And keeping pucks out of their net never was an issue. So I just think that they're very much in the mold of like an Islanders or a Predators or a Dallas or like a St. Louis, where it's just like depth, no weaknesses, strong team game, everybody plays together. And on top of that, I have a bet with Nick, so I have to really go
Okay.
with
Well,
Montreal
now
too.
we're getting to the meat and potatoes of it all.
It's funny because I made that bet earlier, and they've slowly added more and more. And I've heard that Jolson's coming back because Jolson had an injury. I think it was concussion issues,
Mhm.
but he basically missed all of last year. That's why people
Yeah, I
are
don't see him
overlooking
on the
him.
projected lineup.
Exactly. So people are like, nobody's giving him any respect, but he already, for one full season, ate a ton of minutes for them. So, like, he's healthy. I got to think with better supporting cast, he's going to be in the lineup or at least pushing for a spot in the lineup, which is making somebody else play their game, right?
Mhm.
So, in one way or another, it's going to make their depth on defense, which has kind of been their weakness and been putting the stress on their goalies. Well, they've got better goalie tandem and they got better defense. And like, yeah, their scoring is not bad, amazing. Yeah, their centers aren't amazing, but like, if you have four lines that can play at any moment, you just ride the hot hand and hope that one of the lines is running hot at least at all times, or you try to make the best two super lines you can. If Josh Anderson is healthy, you put him on one line and Gallagher on the other, and you know it's not going to hurt you, right? So I really like how they're built.
You're making
For
some
the
valid
type of
points
season.
here. The way
It's
I look at them, they feel like Vancouver was last year, maybe the year before, just about to
Mhm.
like they need some time to work with all these players, their stars to get that boost, but maybe I'm discounting it. Like Pedersen had his breakout year his second year, Larry. So it's possible Suzuki and those guys step up this year to have their amazing year. And maybe I'm discounting some of the depth they've added here because like Toffoli's a pretty big add just as a solid winger. Their goalie is definitely, there's no question about Price and his capabilities back there. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe
I think that Price is going to be fresher, and I think that Price is like, I think Price has put a lot of his effort the last couple of years into, you know, making sure he lunges for every attempt because he knows that one goal by him could be the difference of the game. And I feel like a lot of times at the same time saying that, he understands that, yes, I want to lunge for that, but I know if I lunge for this one, I'm going to maybe tear my groin. And if I'm out, we have to wave the white flag. So like, I feel there's part of his game where over the last couple of years, he's became more and more reserved because he's their star, because he's the guy he understands he's got to be in the lineup. And especially against a league that's trending more towards more away from one starting goalie. I think that basically they're going to say, you know, when you're in, we expect you to go all out. And then when you're out, you're not coming in. Whether we lose 9-0, 15-0, that game is your night off. That's your night to rest, recover, and you're back in the next game. I think we're going to see a lot of that.
That sounds good. And to kind of talk on what we've talked about in last season and stuff, it looks like Montreal's doing what they need to do to try to keep him around. I know we talked about that he might demand a trade, and if they didn't like turn the ship around, it looks like they're trying. They're putting in a valiant effort.
Yeah, I didn't think they were going to be able to do it because I don't believe that you can not rebuild without getting top picks properly and be sustainably good. But I also always thought that they only had one release valve ever, and that was Seattle, because I felt like if Price was ever going to go anywhere else, it was going to go to the West Coast.
Yeah.
And I didn't think he was going to be in California. So what other teams are in the West Coast? I don't think he'd play in Vancouver, but isn't he from BC? I believe he's from BC.
I don't know. Sure.
I'm pretty sure he's from BC or just outside of BC. So like Seattle would be pretty close. And with them expansion, they have the money to bring on a guy. Like it would be a good trade for Montreal to be like, hey, take him and you help us. He's your stud. We move forward with whoever. At this point, it could be Allen and their young kid that they really like. Like I always felt that was the logistic or logical out. But now I'm thinking it might not be. But I also think it's then or never. Are you committed to spending the rest 9 years, 7 years, whatever with Price? Or do you want to bite the bullet, let him go to Seattle and
they're
not have that commitment? I don't think so anymore, but I would strongly consider it because I don't think goalies have shelf lives like that anymore.
Maybe, yeah.
Especially at that pay. But just wanted to touch on Montreal. So they've got Tatar, Deneau, and Gallagher as line 1. Toffoli, Suzuki, and Josh Anderson as line 2. Drouin, Kotkaniemi, and Armia as line 3. Paul Byron, Ryan Poehling, and Arturi Lehkonen as their 4th line. Then they've got Sherratt and Weber, Kulak and Petrie, Edmondson, Romanov, and then they've got Jolson as well, or Jolson. Like that's some depth right there. But
yep,
I like them a lot. But at the same time, I have Montreal, Edmonton, and Vancouver in the same tier after saying all of that.
Montreal, Vancouver, Edmonton, not Calgary?
See, I struggled with all 5 of those teams: Montreal, Edmonton, Vancouver, Calgary, and Winnipeg. I think each one of them has their own glaring weakness, which makes it hard to pick which one will actually, be standing there when the dust settles. But I think Montreal is the best team. I think Edmonton has the best players without a doubt. I think Koskinen's going to be sneaky this year. I think he's going to put up a good season, and I think that's what's going to get them into the playoffs. Vancouver, I believe the hype as well. They've got a lot of young talent, but I do believe they've got a couple problems they need to fix before they can really take that next step. And that's that heavy, expensive guys like the
Beagles,
Roussel's, the Beagles, and the
their defense
Ericssons.
is a little suspect too. The depth of it. They're losing Chris Tanev is a big.
Yeah, but you got Schmidt and Ulevi's coming up.
Hopefully, yeah.
Myers is solid.
Yeah, fair enough.
They'll be okay. And their goalie. You got long term. I don't know what's going to happen in net. I like both Holtby and Demko. They're not both going to be there long term.
Good signing. They would have had to overpay for Markstrom, and I'm glad they didn't.
That's why I like Calgary, because Calgary hasn't had that dependable goalie since Kiprusoff. Like, Calgary's identity has always been physical and goalie. Jerome McGinley and Mika Kiprusoff. Chuck,
Nobody.
now it's Markstrom, right? So like they've solidified that they're back to their identity, which I think is going to help them. But we've talked about Gaudreau, we've talked about Monahan, the top lines. Like, I don't know about their scoring, especially when this division is high scoring. Yeah. That's what scares me about them. Winnipeg, their defense, I don't think Hellebuck's going to have the same year. I think that may have been his career year or one of them. I think he's going to regress a little bit. I think some of their defense had better years. I think that a lot of it was, Trouba turned his back on us, and Byfuglien turned his back on us. Who are we? Are we just going to sit here and take it, or are we going to stand up and prove that we don't need them? Like, I think there's a lot of that in the team last year.
Yeah, there's a lot of people against them from the get-go last year, and I think
the lining distractions. And I just it's hard to do that 2 years in a row. No. But I heard if he does ever return, it will only ever be to Minnesota. So I don't know if Minnesota is relevant. Maybe he signs midseason. Who knows? But at the same time, a big boy that wasn't known for his speed, agility, and conditioning hasn't played for 2 years.
Yeah, man.
If he's going as forward, maybe. But I don't think he has a career at defense anymore in the league. So,
interesting.
Whatever, right? But
who do you got coming out of this?
What I finally boiled down to is I didn't like the warts mostly on Calgary and Winnipeg, so I kicked them out of the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So I have Toronto, Montreal, Edmonton, Vancouver.
Okay, you've come a long way.
And I'd say Toronto. What's that?
So you've come a long way from Edmonton missing the playoffs.
A lot of it was I thought their goaltenders were shit. Mm-hmm. And I still do. But when I really look at the goaltenders around the league, there's nothing stopping Koskinen from being maybe not a top 10 goalie, but like number 11 or number 12, which would get Edmonton into the playoffs, right? So like he had like some insane stats in the KHL, which I know doesn't translate, but there was like a weird stat his first year here. I don't know if you followed that, but Koskinen was like 1-9 or something in his road starts. And he was like 8-2 in his home starts. Okay. It was some like insane thing, and like his goals against was like 2.5 more. Like it was this really. I remember clear...
I had him on my fantasy team.
And it was like just that really awkward but clear. You suck away and you're good at home for whatever reason. And then it disappeared after the first year, right? So like there's weird things like that. So weird first year, second year he was calm and more steady and whatever. So what's not saying that he's now more settled and he can't what's his name, the old guy, Smith. I mean, Smith's not playing half the season. Like he's got 20 games left, right? So Koskinen's probably going to get the workload. So it's put up or shut up.
Plus when you get to practice against McDavid shots, Draisaitl shots, all that, you're going to be better.
Exactly. So like there's room to improve there. And for me, I just felt like it's like you said a while back, it's hard to write off the two best players or two of the best players in the world on the same team, especially if they put them on separate lines and only use them together on the power play and stuff. They finally got Turris, that was a huge ad. Yep. Yes, massive ad. They got Puljujärvi to come over, which I think is going to be a big ad. Their defense is a little weak on top of the question in net, which always scares me when both of those things are a question mark. That's always scary. But like, I just kept coming back. If Koskinen has a good year, they're in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So I'm just like, I'll go with that. So that's why I pushed them up. And then Vancouver is a playoff-built team. I think in this type of schedule, they're going to not give away a lot of points. And I think that when the dust settles, bring up some of the young kids, I think that they'll be fine. Yeah. I don't think they'll be amazing, but I think they'll be fine. And then I think that they'll get better from here on out if they can get rid of those contracts. But I'd have Toronto over Vancouver, Montreal over Edmonton. So I'd have Toronto versus Montreal in the Northern Division, and I'd have Toronto taking it in 7 games.
Let's see. I have Toronto against Edmonton, but Toronto taking it, which feels wrong, but I'm going to say it anyway. It feels wrong to say. Feels wrong.
So we both have Toronto?
I guess so.
Jeez. You've come a long way. I mean, I guess now that we've talked about that, the couple things I wrote down that I just wanted to do the trades.
All
The
right,
trade piece is always what I like.
all right.
But
Do you want to fire through them? We're coming
yeah,
on
I'll
almost
fire through a
3 hours.
couple things. Yeah, I know. I looked at the time and I was like, oh shit.
We've been
Okay, so we'll
going
wrap
on.
this up real quick. But first thing is I think Patrick Kane is going to be traded.
Okay, I'd love to see
And
that.
I think he's going to be traded to the Buffalo Sabres.
That's just disgusting. I know why you're saying that.
I think
yeah.
Yeah, and then I think that they'll retain Hall, and then I think they'll move some other pieces to make some other things work for them moving forward. But I think that their top pairing will be Dahlin and Ristolainen with Kane, Hall, and Eichel. And finally, Eichel will be happy, and they will finally move forward with their
team.
Destined good team. Jonathan Gibson, I think, will be traded to the Colorado Avalanche. Either him or Tuukka Rask will end up in Colorado.
Okay.
I think PK Subban will be traded to a playoff team, and I think that New Jersey will retain money on him because they don't have a choice.
Yeah.
I think Calgary trades Johnny Gaudreau to the New Jersey Devils.
Okay.
And I think Johnny Hockey goes to play with Hughes and whoever in New Jersey to kind of take another step in Jersey's hands. And I think they're going to use some of the assets they get back for retaining on Subban to flip and get Gaudreau. So I think they're going to try and basically turn Subban into Gaudreau. Rask will leave Boston, whether it's retirement or whether it's trade or whatever. This will be his last year suiting up for the Bruins. I think the Bruins will trade for a defenseman, and I think it will be only a 1-year help move. I think it will be Oliver Ekman-Larsson.
Okay.
And I think it will be in the next 48 hours or next week. Because they have a defenseman that they clearly don't love. They're trying to move. They're trying to move some cap that they have in players up front, and they clearly need a defenseman that can eat up some minutes and play with McAvoy. And the only defenseman that a team is currently willing to move that I think is a top 4 player is Oliver Ekman-Larsson. So I think he's going. And my last call for trades, I think Brent Burns will be traded in the next calendar year.
Damn. Okay.
Before either an expansion or by the draft. Like before the start of next season, Burns will not be a Shark.
All right.
That's my prediction.
I love it. Love the prediction.
One last prediction. I think that the Quebec Nordiques will return. Also,
will they be the Nordiques?
Same deadline.
Same team name?
I don't think they will be because the Nordiques name is owned privately, and I don't think that they're going to be willing to pay the price that person will probably try to hold hostage. So, I mean, they might be a spin-off of the Nordiques and call them like the Deeks or like, I don't know what other subs you could use for like that, but just as a silly
Canadian
example.
Geese.
Maybe, right? Like who knows?
The geeky Deeks.
Yeah, but with the Deeky Deeks. It's like the Dicky D. But did I say that earlier about the NHL arena and the money on the fans was the only thing holding Quebec back from being an NHL team?
Mm-hmm.
And the arena was started. The project was started for building a new arena like a year and a half ago, and it was supposed to be finished and ready for the first year that Seattle was ready to join the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
And the NHL didn't want to take the spotlight away from Seattle because if they're paying whatever it was, $600 million to enter the league, then they're not going to steal their spotlight by sending it to Quebec.
Totally,
because everyone in Canada will care more about Quebec than they will Seattle, which isn't really fair. But at the same time, money, which I just wanted to go say with the cap relief, that they're going to have to do something because the helmet recovery for the advertising on the helmets, they said was only like 10% of what they need to recover, which means that they have to recover more than that to make any kind. Well, they're not making money this year, but to try and recover as much as possible, right? But there's some owners out there who are saying, well, if I make the playoffs as a team, like I'm gonna lose money this year, but if I have to then host playoff games, that's gonna lose more money. I'd rather not. And that was the reply in terms of why some free agents have not been signed or given money. Because some teams are like, why would I pay $4 million to make the playoffs to lose an extra $50 million? Like, I'm just going to wait a year and do that. So that's why a lot of that is happening. But I think the last prediction I'm going to make here is I think the NHL is going to introduce some sort of unique relief valve, whether it's a franchise tag or something like that. That's what makes most sense to me,
Mhm.
is to create a franchise tag where basically the person on that contract does not count towards your cap. You can pay them whatever you want to pay them, but they are paid outside of the cap structure, and everyone else is free to be. And
Are
I
they
think
still
that
going to
that's
be
the best
capped
way to
at
go.
the 7 years or 8 years, so ever much though?
Yes,
That
yes,
cap
they'll still have to follow the contractual like restrictions and whatnot. But like
towards the cap, it's just okay.
the reason why I think they should do that is that they've applied already for monetary help and they've been denied. So basically, they've been told by government, you're on your own. You got to figure it out yourself. So if I'm in charge and I'm looking at all my 31 owners, 32 owners, and I'm like, we got to help ourselves. Who in this room can help? Probably 5 teams: Montreal, Toronto, Rangers.
Yeah, the same
Couple of
story
teams
that
maybe in
we
there.
talked about. Yeah.
So then how can you open up something to let those teams help fix yourself? The only way that I can think of that is to either give them a compliance buyout where they can acquire the money and use the money that they already have to buy out something to help a team that maybe can't afford to do that, or you do a franchise tag which clears up money, which allows teams to take on somebody else's contract, whether it be a bad contract or a good contract.
No, totally.
So that's that. You got to do something. It's not going to stand still. And to me, that makes most sense. I'll just do a quick example with the Leafs with Matthews. He gets 11.634 million. If the Leafs were to put him on this franchise tag, let's say the Leafs now get $11 million to spend. They can retain a couple of guys and then maybe go out and offer $5 million on a team or on a player at maybe one of these other teams who were saying, oh, well, I'm not going to give this guy $5 million because he's going to help me make the playoffs and lose me more money. Well, the Leafs want to make the playoffs. They don't care about that. So let them use the money that's actually available to get the guy. So like they got to find something like that. But that's where I think it's going. That's where I hope it's going.
Yeah, we have all season to talk this shit out.
Yeah, man.
And figure it out.
I can't wait.
It's gonna be a fun year. Before we sign off here, we do have our Final Four. We got to do our Stanley Cup predictions.
Oh yeah.
Before the season starts. So yeah. I'll just kick things off. I got Toronto, Vegas, Nashville, Washington as my Final Four. I got Nashville beating Washington.
Okay.
Wait, does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah, and then I got Toronto beating or losing to Vegas.
Okay. Vegas Nashville final.
Vegas Nashville final. And Vegas is finally gonna take this one home to all their big fans here.
What is it like being a fan of 2 teams that don't win?
I'm a fan of the Miami Dolphins, man. I know what it's.
Okay.
You should really ask Jesse that question.
So I guess.
But what it's like being a bad.
That's true, right? Toronto, St. Louis for me. I got it. Even though a Leaf fan, I got to go St. Louis. I think Toronto has the capability. Until they do it, growing up, I'm always like, the Leafs are going to make the cup. And I pick them from every cup final. And every year I slowly pull back on that. The last couple of years, I'm just like, nah, they're not there yet. But
yeah, I'm not strictly drinking the Vegas Kool-Aid. I am, but at the same time, I really do firmly believe they're the top team in this league. I think they're just.
I got St. Louis, Washington in the final. And I got Washington taking the cup.
Oh, snap. So,
and then Chara will ride off in the sunset. And the Chara will get the cup, pass it to Lundqvist. Lundqvist will lift the cup and announce his retirement.
Interesting. All right. I love it.
All right.
It's been a long night, but it was
have fun editing.
yeah. But no, it was great. I've been missing this, so
yeah.
We'll touch base on when we're gonna do this again.
Yep, we'll set up like a somewhat of a schedule and see what we're gonna do. One night for fantasy and one night for chat.
All right, perfect. Take care,
man.
Peace.
Yeah, cheers.